Hello subscribers, here is another review, and this time I'll be reviewing the Bandai Movie Monster series and Jakks Pacific King Ghidorah figures, from of course, Godzilla King of the Monsters. Now, the MonsterVerse King Ghidorah is my favorite incarnation of the character, and it's nice to own 3 figures of him. So we'll start this video off by taking a look at the 3.5-inch Jakks Pacific figure. Here we have the 3.5-inch Jakks Pacific Ghidorah figure. Now this figure is looking really cool, especially for a minifigure. Well, I'll just get the negatives out of the way. My second issue with this figure is the paint. See, of course, Ghidorah is usually gold, but I felt like they could have done some dry brushing across the figure, especially because I think the 3.5-inch Godzilla and Rodan has dry brushing. So my main issue with the figure is that it can't stand that well. His wings are made of like a heavier plastic than the rest of the body, and if you want to splay his wings out, he just falls over like that. So the best way to get him to stand is to put his wings up like that, which look kind of ridiculous. But as you can see, the sculpt is overall good. Even the wings are a bit too large in compared to the body, but they still look great. See, they're nicely sculpted. You see all the nice details across his body. See, you got his heads right there, looking nice, and then he's got 9 points of articulation. You could move his 3 heads, his wings, his legs, and his 2 tails, which were detached when they were in the packaging. So yeah, this is a pretty nice Ghidorah figure right here. Now let's compare him to some other figures. So here's all the 3.5-inch Godzilla King of the Monsters figures from Jakks Pacific, and which includes the Godzilla that Ghidorah was packaged with. And Ghidorah's pretty in scale with all of them, even though Mothra seems a bit too large right here. Next up is the 6-inch Jakks Pacific figure. Now this figure is looking better than the smaller figure, paint-wise at least. But you can see across the figure, he's a darker gold, but that's because of the gray dry brushing across the figure, and also because of the dry brushing, you can see all the you can pick out the details easier. You see all the muscles on his back right there, as well as the scales. See his spiky tail right there. You see all the nice details on his torso and his feet right there, and his wings, of course. Now let's see its heads. See, his heads are nicely sculpted, pretty movie accurate, but they're sloppily painted, which is my biggest gripe with this figure. But other than that, this the figure is pretty good, and also the proportions seem to be good. The necks don't seem to be too short. The wings don't look to be too oversized. Now, articulation, 9 points, just like the small figure. So you can move his heads, his wings, his legs, and his 2 tails, which were also detached when they were in the packaging. Now, the articulation on the wings is actually at the elbows instead of the shoulders like the small figure. And I think the wing articulation being here is actually better. Now let's compare this Ghidorah to some other figures. As you can see, we've got Ghidorah next to the Bandai Movie Monster Series Godzilla 2019, as well as the 6-inch Jakks Pacific Rodan and the 3.5-inch Jakks Pacific Mothra. And I think Ghidorah is actually in scale with Mothra and Rodan here. Well, not so much with Godzilla. And I think Jakks Pacific made the mistake of not making a 6-inch Godzilla. Last but not least, we have the Bandai Movie Monster Series figure. Now this is my favorite of the 3, and I'll explain why. For one, you can see all the nice scales sculpted across the body. You can see these smaller scales on his torso, which look fantastic. See, they're also on his arms right there, as well as on the back of his neck right here, and it feels great as well. And of course, you got these larger scales on the bottom of his neck right here, and it goes down to his chest. And you also got them on the bottom of his 2 tails right there. You got his legs right there, which are very swole, a lot more muscular than the Jakks Pacific figures. Of course, you got his wings right there, very nicely sculpted, and they're a durable plastic, and I like how they're pliable, of course being a vinyl. So another thing I really like are the head sculpts. They're just as good as the Jakks Pacific head sculpts, but they're more nicely painted. You see how nicely painted his golden eyes are, as well as his white teeth. And one thing I don't like, the Jakks Pacific figures suffer from this too, is that they have the mane, which of course the MonsterVerse Ghidorah never had. He had horns. these manes make him resemble the Showa Ghidorah more. And also, he stands quite well. And see, his colors is basically gold like the Jakks Pacific figures. But I really like how they added these the sand colors on the bottom of his neck right there and on his biceps. Prevents the figure from having a bland color scheme. Now, sadly, this figure doesn't have articulation. Now, another person who reviewed this figure showed that these three heads are able to articulate as well as the tail if you break the glue seal. So I don't know why Bandai couldn't have just made those parts articulated. So that's about it for the Bandai Ghidorah. Very nicely detailed and sculpted, and nice material. So let's compare him to some other figures. So we've got Ghidorah next to the Bandai Godzilla 2019, as well as the 6-inch Jakks Pacific Rodan, and the 3.5-inch Jakks Pacific Mothra. And I think he's pretty in scale with all of them. Even though, I just wish that his necks were a bit longer, and that the middle head was raised higher than the left and right heads, just so he'll look more in scale with Godzilla. Well, there you have it, guys. This is my review on the Bandai Movie Monster series and Jakks Pacific MonsterVerse King Ghidorah. Now, I do recommend all of these figures. They're all great, despite the Jakks Pacific figures having a few issues. So, if I had to give each of these guys a rating, I'm going to have to give the 3.5-inch Jakks Pacific figure a 7 out of 10. The sculpt is great, but the wings are a bit too large. It has balancing issues, and it could have had a better paint job. Now, the 6-inch Jakks Pacific figure, I'm going to have to give him an 8 out of 10. The proportions are great. I love the articulation, but it's just the paint on the faces are too sloppy. Also, it's a bit small. The Bandai one, I'm going to have to give him a 9 out of 10, mostly because the detailing is great, so is the head sculpt, and I love the look of vinyl. So if you guys like this review, leave a comment, like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.